scratchy today. The air was still not great yesterday. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be like today. I wasn't out all that much, but enough, obviously. So I'm a little bit scratchy today. There we go. Got that rolling. All right. Good morning. Welcome to Tuesday's Early Morning Intuitive Guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum. Here are some words of wisdom to start your day off well. And most of the words of wisdom I'm sharing today are Maria Shriver's words of wisdom. But I want to introduce my peeps to her newsletter if you haven't found it already on your own, you lucky people. Good morning, Gwen. Good morning, Joe Neal. Good morning, Kennedy. Glad you are here. This is good stuff today. So I am going to get us started with some tapping and some breath, and then we're jumping right in because it's a little longer. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Oh, my neighbor just got back from a bike ride. I don't want to be riding around in this pea soup. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I can feel that scratch right in the back of my throat. Good morning, Beth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. One more. In through the nose. Hello, Nancy. Out through the mouth. So what I want to share with you today is Maria Shriver's online newsletter. It's called The Sunday Paper, and it says, rise above the noise, move humanity forward. And that is exactly what this reading is designed to do. And her typical way of approaching this is sort of her, I've been thinking, and then she talks about the various articles that are going to be in the newspaper. So I may skip a little bit of that stuff, but I want you to catch the gist of community. This is about building community. And I was watching something yesterday where they were talking about, I don't even know who my neighbors are. I don't even know who my neighbors are. So let's read this and see what you think. Maria Shriver's Sunday Paper, Building Community. I hope wherever you are this morning, you're able to step outside and breathe with ease. Not yet. The images of black toxic smoke covering so many cities and vast spaces of land are terrifying. Canada is on fire. And as is the case these days, what happens in one country impacts the lives of millions in others. If this is not the clearest example of us living in an interconnected world, I don't know what is. Good morning, Barb. Glad you are here. Welcome. You will see this play out today. So she wrote this during the World Cup finals in dramatic fashion at the World Cup finals, but you can also see it playing out in other ways as well. 2 U.S. service members were killed at a U.S. base in Jordan by Iranian attacks, and President Trump retaliated by striking Iran. This is on top of other countries now struggling for water due to the same war. The policies other countries have surrounding immigration and economic development impact the United States. And according to the president, election manipulation from foreign countries affect what is going on here at home. Then she's talking about being able to read those more deeply. But she says, today in this column, I want to tell you about another story from this past week that impacted me deeply, despite all the news swirling around the zeitgeist. As many of you know, Norway lost its World Cup match to England earlier in the week. I watched it from my hotel bed in London. What happened when the Norwegian team returned home took me aback. The entire country showed up. Not for a victory lap, but to celebrate a team that had given everything they had, even if they came up short. The Norwegians have a tradition called the Viking row. When their team needs to dig deep, their fans roar the word row as they mimic the motion, pulling hard against an invisible current, together as one. Good morning, Melissa. Glad you are here. Welcome, welcome. When their team came home from the World Cup without a trophy, Norway roared and rowed for them anyway, as if the team's effort itself was worth celebrating. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's reward effort. Let's reward showing up. Let's reward the whole bloody thing, not just who comes out on top, okay? As if the team's effort itself was worth celebrating, as if showing up and giving everything was the whole point. I keep coming back to the images this week, first out of disbelief, but then just to let it sink in and feel it. The sea of humanity. I wanted to let it teach me something. I needed that moment. It moved me. Watching Norway roar for a team that lost brought me straight back to a memory I have carried for 50 years. In 1972, my father was the vice presidential candidate on the McGovern-Shriver ticket. They lost to Richard Nixon in one of the largest landslides in American history. As I stood on the stage with my father that evening, I felt embarrassed. She was a young girl at that point. I was humiliated. I didn't know how to hold what had happened, and so I looked away. I didn't put my arms around my father and tell him I was proud of him. I didn't roar for him. I let the world's verdict become my own, and in doing so, I failed him in a way that has stayed with me ever since. In 1976, my father tried again, this time running for president himself. And if you don't know her father, good morning, Debbie, glad you are here, welcome. If you don't know anything about her father, look up Sergeant Shriver. Learn what kind of a human he was. Very few people showed up for him. After just a few short months, he dropped out. And again, instead of celebrating the extraordinary fact that he had gotten into the arena at all, that he put himself out there and risked everything because he believed he had something to offer this country, I felt the sting of what the world called losing. Again, also, I would say, if you haven't read any of Brene Brown's books relative to this kind of stuff, do so. It's a whole different perspective. She talks about the people who sit in the cheap seats. They're not the ones in the arena, bloody, naked, sweating, etc., doing the work. They're sitting up in the cheap seats critiquing. The crowd had gravitated toward whoever they thought was the winner, and they left everyone else in the dust. I looked at my father through a winner-loser prism, and it still shames me today. Because here's what I now know that I didn't know then. My father was a happy warrior. What an interesting term, right? Happy warrior. He got into the arena. He tried. He led. He advocated for a hopeful vision of this country that still rings true today. And he deserved from me, from all of us, a roar. I wish I had put my arms around him, looked into his eyes, and said, I'm so proud of you for getting out there, for trying, for leading, and I'm proud to be your daughter. Good morning, Mel. That would have saved me from embarrassment. It would have saved me from feeling angry at the public for not recognizing his brilliance. It would have taught me that my own opinion is worth far more than what the public thinks at any given moment. So what is your own opinion about what's going on in the world right now? Do you have your own opinion, or have you just soaked up a party line? I don't care which party, a party line. Do your own due diligence, do your own digging, look at stuff from other perspectives, then form your opinion. And it would have given my father something more valuable than a victory. It would have given him the truth. The truth is inside of you and it's inside of me. Yet the noise often messes with our truth. Hear that again. The noise often messes with our truth. The truth is, Norway's homecoming was surprising to me because it was so different from what I've been experiencing here at home. I saw joy in defeat. The way they handled losing with grace, with pride, with their heads high, has stayed with me. Since then, I've been thinking about that joy and noticing it in ways I have missed before. In fact, I noticed it big time in a room in London that was full of the same spirit that so many of us need in our lives right now. Because this past week, I was at the largest Alzheimer's conference in the world. And it was there that I had the privilege of hosting our WHAM symposium, which brought together researchers, advocates, and other leaders in the space to talk about the advances being made for women and for Alzheimer's. We talked about what we know, what we are learning, and where we are going. And again, good morning, Gwen. Glad you're here. Yes, the noise often messes with the truth. And again, look at the ridicule we cast on our predecessors for what they didn't know. They were in the process of learning stuff. We wouldn't know that stuff if they hadn't gone through the process of learning it. And we can be so contemptuous with our noses in the air. I don't care if it's science, I don't care if it's technology, I don't care if it's economics, whatever. We can be, well, they were so stupid. No, they were learning. And we wouldn't know what we know now if they hadn't learned what they learned then. We're so arrogant. Alzheimer's is a devastating disease. It has taken millions of people from the families who love them, including my own. It is taking more every single day. We saw that this week when Captain Sully Sullenberger stepped forward to tell the world that he is now battling Alzheimer's himself. The weight of that is real, and we never pretend otherwise. And yet, the people in the room were making a deliberate choice to be hopeful, to be joyful, to be optimistic, to celebrate every advance. I'm sorry, this is hard given my dad. This really is a shitty illness. And again, do we rise up in support of the people who are struggling with this? Or do we kind of just hand them over to the experts and let them do the caregiving and all the, and I'm not saying everybody has to have their person at home because it is damn difficult, but are we paying attention? Are we being present? Are we honoring the people who deserve to be honored? Hold, please. So, I know from experience that keeping your spirit high is not denial. It is fuel. It is what sustains your work when things get hard and when the finish line is nowhere in sight. I sat in that room watching scientists find joy in rowing together. And look at what's happening to science right now. We are gutting the funding. Thank you guys. Gutting the funding for the stuff that's actually going to solve these problems. And even if we restore the funding sooner rather than later, the amount of momentum that's been lost out of these stupid, short-sighted decisions is immense, just immense. So she's talking about the scientists who were in that room talking about Alzheimer's research. I know you get it, Melissa. I know you get it. Melissa's my sister-in-law, and my mother-in-law is struggling with this as well. So, and I think about all the things humans are struggling with, and I wish I had the magic wand that could go poof and not make things a cakewalk for people, but at least make them feel like this struggle is worthwhile, right? It is so exhausting at times. So she says, they found joy in the questions, in the collaboration, and in the quiet daily act of showing up for something that matters. That's why Saturday, when I went to look at the tiny house village in Green Bay for the veterans, I went to get some hope. I went to put some wind in my own sails for my own project. If they can do this, look at this. Here it is. There's buildings. They don't have anything on the walls yet. They haven't been finished inside, but there's buildings. If they can do it, I can do it. So, she says, I thought my father would have understood every single one of these scientists. And then I thought, this is Norway, right here in this room. Speaking of Norway, let's take a moment to acknowledge that team star, Erling Haaland. He has been celebrated across the world, not just for his performance, but because of what he brought to every single moment he was on that field. Joy, excellence, resilience, a kind of luminous commitment to the game itself that transcended the scoreboard entirely. Haaland won in all the ways that actually matter. He won hearts. He won minds. He showed an entire generation of younger players what it looks like to play with your whole soul, regardless of the outcome. And Norway roared for him. They roared for all of them. The American team played their hearts out on home soil. They ignited a passion for soccer in this country that hadn't been there before. Crowds showed up, and our nation briefly united around a shared hope. Yet, when our team lost, what did we talk about? Not what they had built, not the fire they had lit, not the joy they had brought to millions of people who had never watched a soccer match in their life. We talked about how they hadn't delivered, how they hadn't lived up to expectations. There was no parade, no homecoming, no roar. They were met with silence. That silence says more about us than it does about them. We live in a winner take all culture, and we learn this lesson early. We learn it in sports, in business, in relationships, in the way we talk about success and failure as though they are permanent conditions rather than moments in life. And I'm going to say, rather than the learning opportunities they always are. We exalt the winners, we ridicule the losers, and in doing so, we lose something essential about our humanity. Here's what I believe with everything I have. Every human being deserves to be celebrated, not just for winning, but for what they are going through, for what they have accomplished, for their resilience, for the way they get back up, for the way they reach out to friends when they are hurting, for the way they keep trying to love even after they've been hurt. What if instead of asking, did they win, we asked, did they show up? Did they try? Did they bring joy, excellence, and heart to whatever they were doing? Did they get into the arena? How many people don't do things because they're afraid they can't do them perfectly or they can't do them well? How many people have given up something that they loved because I'm not any good at it? Yeah. Well, if I'm not going to be an Olympian, I'm not going to do X anymore. If I'm not going to hit the Billboard top 100, I'm not going to make music anymore. If I can't, garbage, 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 garbage. Do it for the joy that it brings you. I hate the term winners and losers. It is superficial, judgmental, and costs us more than we know. It cost me a moment with my father that I can never get back. This ethos, roaring for effort, celebrating the heart, honoring everyone in the arena, is not new to me. I have seen it my whole life in the Special Olympics movement. Her parents were integral in creating the Special Olympics. In every coach who shows up for an athlete the world has written off, in every parent who drives hours to watch their child compete and cheers as if the gold medal and the last place finish were equally worthy of celebration, because they are. Every volunteer who gives their weekend not for glory, but simply to be a part of a movement that says, you matter, you belong, we see you. The Special Olympics was not built by one person. It was built by volunteers, parents, coaches, and families who decided they were going to show up for their people regardless of what the world thought. People who wanted to build a more connected, more human world, and who built it one athlete, one meet, and one roar at a time. That has always been the ethos of the Special Olympics. And it's the same ethos Norway brought to the World Cup. At its best, the World Cup is about far more than wins and losses. It is a global celebration of shared humanity, camaraderie, and joy. Let's see. There's another, if you do get Maria Shriver's newsletter, or even if you don't, sign up for it. This thing is fabulous, right? She shared, there was another story in there by a travel expert, Rich Steves, who talks about the most meaningful lessons we can learn from coming from common ground with people whose lives and experiences are different than their own. He's from Seattle, and he takes tens of thousands of people a year traveling. And travel is an amazing way to learn about people. Good morning, Abigail. Glad you're here. I remember taking my kids to Cozumel, I believe it was. Yes, we went to Cozumel. And we were driving up into the mountains to see a forest, a rainforest. And there were these little huts on the side of the mountain and open troughs with sewage running. And my daughter, who I think was like 8 at the time, looked at me with these gigantic eyes and she said, "Do people live there?" And I said, "Yes, people live there. Those are their houses." And she said, "We are so lucky." I said, "Yes, we are so lucky." That's a useful perspective for an 8-year-old to get, a hugely useful perspective. Now, if we can get the 28-year-olds and the 58-year-olds and the 98-year-olds all to have that same perspective, yeah. All right, let's see where we are. When I watched Norway rise as one, an entire country in the same boat, rowing in the same direction for the same team at the same moment, I realized that's what I want for our country as well. Los Angeles, where I live, feels so divided right now. So does America. As a collective, we're scared, angry, and hopeless in so many ways. I don't think most people feel like they are rising as one. And I have to be honest, this winner take all, us versus them mentality has shown up in so many areas of my life over the years. Journalism, politics, media. You are only as good as your last story, your last election, your last ratings number. There is very little roaring for effort, very little celebration of the happy warrior who got into the arena and gave everything even when the outcome didn't go their way. So how do we get to where Norway is? How deep do we have to dig to find that in a culture that often pits us against one another, especially when we have a president seeking to divide us, scare us, and spin lies to us about who we are and about our institutions? It is hard to row forward if someone tells you over and over to go back. So what is the solution? I think we start smaller than we imagine. I love that. I think we start smaller than we imagine, baby steps. I think we start by finding joy in our everyday lives and expressing it out loud, not performing it, but actually feeling it and naming it. I think we start by talking about what is right about our cities and our country instead of only what is wrong. I think we start by gathering, connecting, and conversing. I think we start by looking at the person next to us, the one rowing quietly, who maybe didn't win, but who is still trying, and we roar for them. Just that one act, repeated enough times by enough people, is how you build a community. That's why I love the Holy Moments book and spreading them around my city so that other people can learn about that concept, right? Let's see, where are we here? How do you build unity? How do you find yourself suddenly in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, rising at one as one? Norway didn't get there by accident. They got there by deciding that this is the kind of country they wanted to be. We can decide that too. We can decide whether we want to live in a winner-loser culture. We can decide whether we want our children to see bullies succeed or to see those who find joy in the effort celebrated. We as a nation need to decide what to row toward and what to row against. Our children are watching. The world is watching. Our silence, our acceptance is sending a message. Is that one we're proud of? I should have roared for my father in 1972. I should have roared for him in 1976. I should have looked into his eyes and told him what I knew in my heart, but was too young and too afraid of the world's judgment to say out loud. I should have said, "You are not a loser. You are magnificent. You are a happy warrior. You got into this arena when most people never would have dared. I see that now. I wish I had seen it then." Thinking, excuse me, thinking about my father this week made me ask myself a harder question. What else have I only paid attention to the winner? Who have I walked past in my own life without stopping to roar for them? Who is rowing right now, quietly, without fanfare, without anyone in their corner, waiting for someone to notice the effort and say, "I see you, I am proud of you, keep going." Because here is what I keep coming back to. We are living through an epidemic of loneliness. 1 in 3 Americans say they feel lonely. And I wonder now if underneath the statistics and silence, what that really means is this: nobody is roaring for me. Nobody sees my effort. Nobody is standing at the dock when I come home. Nobody thinks what I am doing is worth celebrating because it's not perceived as winning. What if that is the real crisis? Not that we don't have enough people in our lives, but that we have forgotten how to show up for each other the way Norway showed up for its team. Fully, loudly, unconditionally, for the effort, for the heart, for the simple, sacred fact of having gotten into the arena at all. I know I want to do a better job being a happy warrior for the issues and people I care about, and there are a lot of them. So this week, I want to celebrate the happy warriors in all areas of life. The ones standing up for our democracy, the ones studying diseases that have eluded cures, the ones standing up against misinformation, the ones who direct sweeping films like The Odyssey that touch our hearts and ignite our minds, the ones rowing quietly in my own life who need someone to roar for them. I want to show up for them the way I didn't show up for my father. If you are in the middle of something hard and feel like you're rowing toward a shore you cannot yet see, please take a moment to close your eyes and imagine multitudes of people roaring you forward with joy, not because you won, but because you showed up. In this era of loneliness, that is not a small thing. That is everything. Roar and row, everyone. Roar and row. I just thought that was so powerful and such a different way to look at things. We have this myopic view of things. And how many times have we gotten cards that have said expand, expansion, expansion, open your eyes, look at a bigger picture? All the things, right? We keep getting thumped in the head with this message over and over and over again. What are we doing today? What are you doing right in this moment? You're watching this. This is helpful. This is good. Who can you share this with? Not that I'm happy that I sobbed through half of it. Thank you, Gwen. Roaring for you as well. What are we showing up for? What are we afraid to show up for? And can we hold someone's hand and show up anyway? Can we link arms and just show up? Can we say a little something, something? Maybe we don't talk much about what we truly believe in, what's most important to us. Even just tell one person what is most important to you. That's huge. That's huge. I mean, you all know for me, the housing stuff is hugely important. The Alzheimer's stuff is hugely important. Helping people recover from trauma, hugely important. All the things that make my life matter. What are the things that make your life matter? And I'm remembering a conversation with one of my sisters. Her thing is dogs. She has loved dogs since she was a little girl. She takes care of dogs. She donates to shelters. She picks up collars at rummage sales and then gives them to the no-kill shelter. All the things. But then she made some comment about feeling like what she's doing isn't as valuable. I should be paying attention to people. And I'm like, no, hell no. If dogs are what moves you, that's where you focus. If getting roads repaired is what moves you, that's where you focus. If dealing with old people is what moves you, that's where you focus. Don't feel like you have to pick someone else's lane. Stay in your lane. We need it all. And there's enough of us to cover it all if we just show up. Just show up. Have an awesome Tuesday. That was a long one. How long was that? Almost half an hour. Oh my goodness. But important stuff. Important stuff. Thank you, Maria Shriver, for putting it in words. I so appreciate that. Have an awesome Tuesday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.